The New York Football Giants. Oh, baby.
Whew. Talk about dumpster fires, huh? Yeah. 2021 was supposed to be a season for the Giants to find out a lot of things. Whether Saquon Barkley was going to return to old form coming off of the ACL injury. Could Danny Dimes, Daniel Jones, be anything other than a turnover machine? Was Joe Judge ultimately the right guy for the head coaching job? Would Dave Gettleman actually make it through the entire season as general manager? These are key questions for the New York Football Giants that you had going into 2021. And unfortunately, the only one that you could answer yes to in terms of those four key fundamental questions is the last one. And that speaks volumes for this organization. Saquon Barkley did not return to old form. Danny Dimes did not show that he could be anything other than a turnover mistake machine. Joe Judge proved he's not the right guy for the job. But Dave Gettleman made it through the entire season as the general manager of the Giants. Don't you worry. Woo! Woo! I could never really look good for the Giants at any point in time this year. They were 3-6 at the bye, so their season was effectively already over. You're halfway through the season, it's done, you know. So you might as well go fucking big or go home. Or no, go big on the way to go home. The Giants managed to lose 7 of their last 8 games. And it was cringe watching a combination of Mike Glennon and Jake Fromm. Oh my God. You knew that things were bad for the last 2 months of the season with the Jets. It was a frickin' disaster. But where you knew that Joe Judge had to be fired was in that Washington game. You're deep in your own territory. It's like 3rd and 9 and you're taking a knee. Running a quarterback sneak. Whatever the fuck you call that. It's all the same to me at that point. Like, that is throwing in the towel. That is caving. That is mentally conceding. And when your coach does that, there is no reason for him to continue to remain as coach of the organization. It just isn't. Like, there's not a whole lot of positives to really latch onto if you're a Giants fan right now. Danny Dimes, this is year 3 for him, and you're hoping you see something. He had 10 turnovers, as many turnovers as he had touchdown passes. Missed several games due to injuries. So, again, it's like, even if he's on the field, he's not great, and then he's not on the field for several games. Like, how much longer are you going to tie your organization to this dude from a failed general manager like Dave Gettleman? Saquon Barkley had under 600 yards rushing on the ground, and, again, that's not good for a guy that a few years ago you spent the number 2 overall pick on as an organization. Another Gettleman genius. The big money signing Kenny Golladay had a whopping 37 catches for 521 receiving yards and 0 touchdowns. Now, you don't spend big money on a guy like Golladay and expect him to put up 500 yards receiving and no touchdowns. Some of that certainly is on the quarterbacks. Some of that certainly is on the poor offensive play that the Giants have, but some of this got to be on Golladay too. He fucking sucked. The offense was 31st in the league in points scored and total yards per game. And the defense was only marginally better. They were just a below average unit instead of being at the absolute bottom of the heap. They're 21st in total yards allowed, 23rd in total points allowed. What I don't understand is the fact that once that last game of the season ended, how Joe Judge even made it another day or two as the Giants head coach. Like, how is this so hard? Like, you already know you're going to let Dave Gettleman retire because your cowardice is extraordinary in the Giants front office. Well, you don't want to keep firing people. Well, stop hiring the wrong dudes every couple of years and maybe you don't have to fucking do that. Once Gettleman's gone, what freaking general manager candidate with their weight in anything is going to tie themselves to a yet another broken branch of the damn Belichick coaching tree? Who the fuck would want to do that? What in the hell have you seen out of Joe Judge in 2 years that says that he could be the type of guy that leads you to big things? Now, you look at the situation and say, look at the quarterback that he had. Look at the general manager he was saddled with. Look at the lack of talent across this roster. How much was Joe Judge really supposed to do? That's a fair question. But there's also the hard reality, the harsh reality of no GM or potential GM worth their weight in anything, would want to tie themselves to Joe Judge. Why would you? You saw nothing to indicate that he would do anything that other than put your own future job security at risk, or you're just going to end up firing him after a year anyways. So why not accelerate the curve and accelerate the clock and just get your own guy now? I don't get what the hell. It even took a couple of days for them. But at least the Giants have made those moves with Gettleman out. Now Joe Judge is out. They've hired Joe Schoen to be their general manager, bringing him over from the Buffalo Bills, who then consequently brings in Brian Daboll, his guy, to be the head coach. You know, there's plenty of controversy here with the Giants about Brian Flores and whether or not he felt he got a fair crack at this job, a fair opportunity at this job. And here's what I'll say. The cause, I'll keep saying it, and I'll defend this viewpoint. The cause that Brian Flores is filing lawsuit about is completely and totally valid. Brian Flores is a fucking idiot, takes zero accountability and responsibility for himself, is a fucking toxic asshole that you don't want leading anything. Both can be true, and they absolutely are. And it's unfortunate that he's the face of the very important conversation. If you have to be realistic, is it racist that Brian Daboll got hired over Brian Flores? No. It's the way the fucking world works sometimes, fair or not. Of course, the general manager of the Buffalo Bills was one of the coordinators from a team that he was a part of the past few years that he's worked very intimately and closely with, is also available looking for a head coaching job. Makes sense that you might want to trust somebody that you've been able to trust in the past. Like, that's just realistic. Whether or not Daboll or even Schoen, the general manager, are the right guys or not, time will tell. But certainly feel more confidence in these hires than a Dave Gettleman and a damn Joe Judge. That's for damn sure. But for the Giants, what's crazy about this too is they suck and they're over the salary cap. How the fuck does that happen? That's incompetence of the highest order. You don't have a ton of marquee free agents, like you got Evan Ingram, Jabril Peppers, Will Hernandez, Lorenzo Carter, but Hernandez sucked in 2021. You know, what did you really get out of Ingram? How much do you really want to pay Peppers? Same thing with Carter. Like, you could, in theory, let all four of those guys go, and how much would you really miss their presence? But it's really sad the Giants, who are one of the worst teams in the league, one of the worst run franchises in the league, is at the bottom tier of salary cap space. Now, you can get creative, you can make things happen, you can create additional space, you always can, but damn, that just speaks to how incompetent Gettleman was. It really, really does. Now, as much as I've been ragging and crapping on the Giants, which, you know, Giants fans I think have to agree is merited and deserved, it doesn't have to be all bad. This team has 2 first-round picks, and they're both going to be, I think, in the top 10, right? Somewhere around there. You know, the 5th pick and then whatever the Bears pick is. That's not all bad. 2 fourth-round picks. So there is some draft pick capital to play with here. Unfortunately, you're coming into a situation where you don't know whether there's a quarterback worth taking at that spot with either of those 2 first-round picks. Whereas you wish there was one that you could feel really good and confident about, because you could say, God damn, bring in the new general manager, the new head coach, and they're going to build around the new young quarterback. Maybe you're hoping that Daniel Jones will get another chance. I don't know why you would want to tie yourself to him. Oh, he can make some good throws. Yeah, and he makes a lot of shitty ones too. That's the point. A lot of guys in the NFL can make some really nice, spectacular throws. But a lot of guys that can make big, spectacular throws also can't play a fucking lick. What have you seen in Daniel Jones in 3 years that says he can play a lick? What in the 3 years of Daniel Jones in New York makes you think that Daboll and Schoen would want to tie themselves to Daniel Jones for even one season? Maybe it'll be a function of they won't have a choice. But man, oh man, I don't know about all that shit. Because that's the number one need, is quarterback. They got to figure out that quarterback position. And honestly, at this point, you brought in the offensive guy. Certainly there are needs on defense, but those are secondary to the offense right now. You've got to bring in talent on that offensive side of the ball. In particular, you've got to improve that offensive line. That offensive line played like shit last season. You can't put any young quarterback, even if it's Daniel Jones again in 2022, you can't put him behind that offensive line. Feel good about that. But they need to improve their protection in the trenches, their blocking in the trenches. They need to improve their skill positions. They need a ton of work on offense. They now need to give Brian Daboll the weapons that he had in Buffalo, here in New York. They need to have that type of offensive firepower. It's going to be interesting to see how this offseason works out for the Giants. Like, who are they even going to really pursue in free agency? Who's going to want to play there? What goes on with this quarterback spot? Time will tell. But at least if you're a Giants fan, the Joe Judge and Gettleman era is finally over. And that has to be a win as much as anything else.